Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Trash Talk, a little bit ad hoc tonight. This is the show that purports to be an esports phone-in, but in reality is just an excuse for me to lock myself away in my office, away from the girlfriend, and drink alone. But I'm not going to be alone. I imagine some of you guys are going to phone in. It doesn't matter if you do. I got beer. I'll be fine. But there's lots of things to talk about in esports this week. We've got the big prevailing spectre of esports monopoly rearing its head again. Twitch buys Good Game, and our legs were all a quiver with excitement. In League of Legends, we got all the IEM San Jose results, basically summarized lovingly by my producer Sam as saying TSM shits the bed. And Reckless puts in a strong performance despite losing. Xpeke's buggered off from Fnatic, who saw that coming, and has made his own team called Origin, which people have criticized for being badly spelled, even though it's the Spanish spelling, and he's a Spaniard, you know, I mean, come on, people. Cyanide retires altogether. Nukeduck and Mithy unbanned, which we'll talk about why that was weird. And why that caught me a little bit off guard in a second. Acorn, Dandy Heart, Imp Matter arrive in China. Counter-Strike, Fnatic win ESEA, still under a cloud of cheating accusations and scrutiny. And Sam, what the fuck is this? Everyone is sucking off the M4A4 Griffin, hoping to go contraband.
Basically, know what happened with the Howl, this weapon skin before? Yes. Where the art was stolen. Well, the same things happened with the Griffin. So everyone fucking bought one, and the stat track version that was worth like, I don't know, £15 forward worth 150, and people were just like plummeting money into it like it was the fucking, I don't know, the housing bubble. People were spending so much money.
Well, how would you know about the housing bubble?
I heard about
housing crisis, yes. Housing bubble, no. And in StarCraft, because Sam knows nothing about StarCraft, we've got Billowy joining SKTT1. But there's plenty more going on. I was at the Fragbite Masters, Sam.
Yeah, I did see.
You know, we saw a fantastic performance from MMA to win that. So, you know, just saying. You know, other things did happen in StarCraft, right? So, just before we go into the show, let's talk about Mithy and Nukeduck. I know a lot of people have been like messaging me, "Oh, you got it wrong. You should fucking kill yourself." You know, usual stuff, and you know they might have a point. But this was a little bit more complicated, and I'm kind of loath to tell the truth about it all. But what I'll do is I'll just summarize it, and we won't go into the details. I've got a very reliable source, a source that is beyond reproach, a source whose information has to be absolutely gospel and golden, and the notion that this source would be tricked with false information doesn't ring true either. A lot of people were saying that what must have happened for me to get the story wrong was that Riot have started putting out information to try and find out where the leaks are. Now, while I do not doubt for a second that is true, I know of several organizations that have actually pulled people into, borderline disciplinary meetings whenever I leak something because I may or may not have a relationship with these people, and people get convinced that they're the source of the leaks. There's no way that in this instance this has happened. So it does beg the question, why a source who is beyond reproach and never gets anything wrong would share this information, and then seemingly 2 days later this information is invalid and out of date. I mean, I guess the best way to put it would be maybe Riot were going to go one way and then decided to change their minds for reasons that we'll never know. I guess it's a lady's prerogative, and it's also a prerogative of a billion-dollar corporation. But certainly it came out of left field for me. People know me. I'm responsible. I wouldn't put the information out there unless I was certain. I certainly feel bad for Miffy because it must have been a real awkward few days. He'd heard the same thing, incidentally. He'd been told by other people that he wasn't going to be unbanned. He put it out there himself that he was going to remain banned, in his opinion. And after this story, I don't know, things seem to change. Now, I'm not saying Riot changed shit to spite me. You know, I'm not that egotistical, but certainly something has occurred. And I guess we should probably leave it there. That should clear it up, I think, Sam. Do you think that clears it up?
Yeah, without saying too much, I guess.
Yeah, or do you think it just leaves more questions?
We have to know who the inside man is. Reddit detectives beyond that shit.
Well, yeah, there we go. Who said it's a man?
Oh.
There we go. That'll just like women aren't victimized in esports enough. Anyway, so that's that, guys. You know, I fucking I take my job very seriously. I take my responsibilities to my audience very seriously. I've never knowingly put out any false information there. I always double check, triple check, quadruple check, because I know a guy with my personality, if you get one thing wrong, it doesn't matter the other 99 previous to it you got right, your name will be shit. So with that in mind, I did find this very strange and perplexing. But fuck it, you know, it's the Christmas miracle. Richard Lewis is fallible after all. Anyway, Sam, I want to talk to some people.
All right, we're gonna bring the biggest bombshell first of Twitch acquiring Good Game, I guess. And it's John Layden who wants to talk about it. He doesn't give too much information or insight, so we'll just go straight in.
It's a troll. Let's do it. It's a troll. Come on, John. Troll me. Troll me hard. Troll me till I fart. Are you there, John? Can you hear me, brother?
It's got us already.
Yep, the ultimate troll. No call troll. The troll of silence.
Alright. Oh, there he is.
I'm a little bit insulted, dude. I'm not a troll. I'm Irish,
well,
I'm not a troll.
Well, this would be like the Riot thing all over again. If because I've insulted you, you then go on to troll, was I right all along?
Of course, man, of course.
Right. So it's good to talk to you, John. I especially like your Skype picture, which people at home can't see, but it looks... Is that someone shooting somebody else? In the face? It's a bit blurry. Anyway, doesn't matter. Let's talk about Twitch buying Good Game.
He just dropped out.
He just dropped.
You fucking trolled.
There you go. It's the ultimate troll. Fuck this guy. Fuck him. Didn't want to talk about his shit topic anyway.
Alright, drop him out.
Right, we'll bring him back.
Yeah.
We'll bring him back. John, if you're watching this at home, we'd love to hear from you, really, and just Skype picture and stuff. Call back in. Sam will look after you. So who's next, Sam?
Now we have Mark Mina, who wants to talk about how critical the esports community is of content creators and events.
This sounds like something that's right up my street, and it'll give me a chance to whine and martyr myself on my stream again, which I fucking love. So, Mark, can you hear me, brother? This is going well.
For fuck's sake. Why do we do this show?
I don't even know. Oh, here it is. Hello? Is that you, Mark? Mark, don't do this to me.
Fuck this show.
Fuck it. See you next week, everyone.
He's there, I can hear him.
No, I know. What the fuck's he doing? Mark, come on, man.
Put the pot noodle down, son.
Oh wait, I'm an idiot.
Oh, fuck. Is this legit?
Sorry, what's up?
Yeah.
Fuck me.
Are you on heroin? Is there something?
I fucking wish. I'm just actually just a nerd. I have like 3 headsets hooked up to my computer right now, and Skype's using the wrong one.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, that's good. That's good. I mean, that is super nerdy. I mean, we'll do a deal for the heroin after the call. But you want to talk about the community being critical of content creators, and I can
Yeah.
definitely identify with that. So I'm looking forward to having a good bitch and a moan. But what's your point, Mark?
Like, so I've been checking out I was checking out IEM this weekend, and I guess I'm lucky now because I've got into CS. I'm into StarCraft. I'm into League. So there's just this weekend was like a beautiful just content like relaxation for me to get away from exams and everything.
Yeah.
And like I was looking at the StarCraft community, and like the top 5 posts on the Reddit was about shit at the event, like just obstructing the view and everything. And Carmack, like, hey, he's the guy fucking in charge, was like going through everyone and making sure everyone was happy. And then I was like browsing the League subreddit, and everyone was just bitching at IEM still. And I'm 90% sure this is just like leftover residue from them having that little shit show with the expansion tournament. But like this community needs to remember, like, a lot of this shit's in its infancy. This is the first time they've ever done a show in San Jose, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And then like there was a thread on like last week of them bitching at Rifkin for being unprofessional caster.
Well, I didn't see that. So what happened in that one?
Well, people were just bitching out him and being an unprofessional caster and not being serious or a very good caster. Because
Well,
basically,
why was that unprofessional of him? What did he do?
the person was literally just like criticizing his like general like involvement in the community and how it's not professional. And like if you ever watch Base Trade, it's not professional. It's not intended to be. You know, that's why they run their own events and they don't like they're not IEM casters, right?
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
community casters. Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Well, okay, so let's address these points separately.
Yeah.
First of all, here's what I will say: I know the guys at ESL very well. I mean, hell, they fired me. We're very intimate. No, I'm kidding. There's no hard feelings about that at all. Incidentally, I could have still gone. You know, they said I was more than welcome to attend as a VIP. But I chose not to. I chose to go and work for Fragbite on the weekend instead to double my money before Christmas. So the IEM event, you know, I kind of get the criticism actually. A little bit, and I'll qualify this so it doesn't look like sour grapes. I think when you do stadium events, and people go there and they pay a premium price on a ticket, and you know, you get sat behind a fucking lighting rig or sat in front of a dazzling light. I get why people would be a little bit upset and perturbed by that, and the people who would put their hands up first and say perhaps it wasn't good enough would be ESL themselves. They do hold themselves up to a very, very high standard. So I gotta say, like I kind of, while I get it's in their in its infancy, ESL have been hosting events for a long, long time, and oversights like that. They'll be disappointed that they kind of slipped through the cracks, even though it was their first time doing an event in San Jose. I think it's great for America, great for American esports, great for ESL. But ultimately, they'll have been sat in a meeting afterwards saying, right, next time this shit can't happen again because that's unacceptable for our brand. I also got to say as well, I was watching the broadcast at Fragbite, chugging a few beers with the guys after our own show, just show some support, see what they were doing. And there was a few elements of the production on the first day at least that I thought were a little bit lackluster. Like the lighting was fairly poor. The desks weren't all singing, all dancing. There wasn't a lot of ESL branding. So I think they'll have been disappointed with the product going into it. I don't know why that was the case, but ultimately I thought it was a great event because the games and the things that happened there kind of propped it up in terms of what we can expect from ESL in terms of production and polish, razzle dazzle, attention to detail. It actually was a little bit poor by their standards. So that said, I gotta say, I thought Carmack especially handled the situation brilliantly because, I don't know, some fucking bellend says, I'm set behind a lighting rig, which is he's fine to complain about. But, maybe complain about it at the event. Maybe you don't need to make a Reddit thread.
Yeah,
You know,
like
maybe you don't need to make a Reddit thread. So this is where I'm coming around to your way of thinking. Because then what happened was, it's like, all the little PR monkeys are like, oh my God, this is bad. It's out there in public. Carmack, to the fucking, Carmack mobile and fucking save this guy from like not being able to see Day Nine's swollen head. Like they had to fucking go and run and fix it for him. And then there's a post afterwards saying Carmack came in the Carmack mobile and fixed it. So guess what happens? Everyone who's got a seat squeaky, call Carmack, get Carmack over here. So everyone who had even a slight fucking problem all of a sudden was making a Reddit thread. And there were fundamental problems at the event which probably couldn't get dealt with because this tiny attention to detail of everyone whining about everything that wasn't a fucking 100% had to get taken care of. Because, the PR is the most important shit, right? So I thought that was bullshit, personally. I think if you've got a problem, like, every time you have a beef with a service or something doesn't go right, like, okay, some people deserve it. Like, yeah, fuck Comcast or whatever, right? Like, truly evil companies deserve it, okay? But, like, if you can just go to somebody and say, look, I'm not happy with where I'm sat. Can we fix it? You don't need to make the requisite fucking Reddit thread to go with that.
yeah, like I remember I was at IEM Toronto, and I like if you did you actually catch any of that event like on Twitch or anything? That was the event where some asshole went in front of Red Eye and started shouting on his face on camera. That was great.
Yeah, I did see that.
That whole event was
What an idiot.
That whole event was 100 people, like 100 seats. Like that's all that was like maintained. The entire event, there were people just like hanging around everywhere, and it was a massive shit show. And like I tweeted Carmack being like, "Yo, where are seats?" And like not even like 3 minutes later, Carmack like walks to me from the back, and he was like, "Oh yeah, but first year we're just testing the waters, all that crap." And he explained to me why they can't run full events every time, everywhere, and everything. Like. This is a guy who's like fucking running the thing. It shouldn't be his job. Like,
yeah, I agree with you, dude.
and
But
like,
I mean, he's
I was being a
handsome
whiny
guy.
bitch there. Like, let's be honest here. I wasn't.
No, I don't think that's necessarily a whiny bitch, but I get what. Look, you're entitled to a satisfactory experience that lives up to your standards. ESL want to deliver that. You're definitely right in the sense that it shouldn't be up to the guy who fucking. It's like every time you've got a complaint about government legislature, the prime minister doesn't come to my house and say, "Rich, come on." We'll fix this super high level of tax that you've suddenly found yourself in. You've earned money this year. Like we don't sit and have tea and go over it. There's a channel to complain through and to get things resolved, and I'm sure ESL do have that channel. One of the things I hate about esports is the way everything, no matter how small, but anything that's even slightly bad has to play out in public. Everyone's got to know about it. It's your little moment to shine. And everyone thinks, oh, if I take this public, I'll get what I want. And 99 times out of 100, they fucking do. That's a bad precedent to set.
Okay, and yeah, this is like another thing I wanted to lead on. I don't know why I'm shooting on StarCraft DR today. Yesterday, there was a thread about TLO bitching about Naniwa bet. It wasn't even that fucking hard. Like, did you see that? It surprised me. 151 votes, and it only had 3 upvotes, like, positive by the end of it. And like,
I didn't see that, actually, no.
here, I'll link it to you in the chat. No, but it's like we're now like criticizing the most meaningless, littlest shit because we've become such drama hungry shit. And like, I get like eventually drama like was pretty fun. It was pretty juicy there for a while with Sons of StarCraft and everything, but it's calming down, and we should take happy in this and then just enjoy the fucking game and shit that gets like brought to us. Like we don't need to make every little interaction between people
that is pretty pathetic. Like, I mean, right? It's a well-known fact that those two guys don't like each other. I mean, to be honest, I think TLO calling Naniwa a sociopath, it's probably quite tame to some of the other things he said about him in the past. I mean, that's one thing I'll definitely say about StarCraft at the moment. Like, I have no problem with scenes thriving off drama because actually that is pretty much esports in a nutshell. Like, if you were to take drama away from esports, everyone's out of a job tomorrow. Go home, people. It's done. We love drama. So And we need it. We need it for traffic. We need it for attention. We need it for mainstream media. You know, the drama has to be there. But when you try and manufacture drama out of something that isn't inherently dramatic, two people who don't like each other, one guy says a quite tame insult and a clear insult because, you know, TLO's a smart guy, but I'm pretty sure he's not in a position to diagnose whether someone's a sociopath or not. Maybe he will be one day, but he isn't now. So what's the problem? You know, it's not a big reveal or anything. And, you know, Naniwaz said worse about TLO. So you're right. Again, it's just like there has to be other shit going on. I mean, while that was kind of, you know, being put out there as being something worth discussing, you know, what's slipped under the radar, what good stuff has slipped under the radar, you know, like what young players, you know, have gone unnoticed, what games have gone unnoticed. And, you know, I think StarCraft's feeling a little bit of the pinch because League of Legends is dominating, Dota's dominating, CSGO's dominating. This is the first time StarCraft 2 has been the red-headed stepchild of esports since 2010. Like, literally the bottom tier, the one that if an event like DreamHack holds, you know, all of the major esports titles, you know, including Hearthstone and the ones I've just listed, you guarantee StarCraft hits the bottom in terms of viewership. Now, I don't think that's a bad thing, and I think it's great that the viewership's refined, and I love the StarCraft 2 community, but, you know, like, you don't need to manufacture drama to, you know, kind of supplant the fact that it's not as, you know, the popularity it doesn't have anymore. So.
Yeah, like, and it's even, like, going down into there, like, if you've seen, like, Jack Attack posts and shit recently, there are people bitching at him because he made that mod and he's been posting it, like, a shit ton for the Legacy of the Void shit. It's just getting real fucking old. Like, people are still bringing up Boostgate and shit, and while I know that shit's not over and there's still a discussion to be had there on CSGO, like, come on, I'm sure we can get into some new drama and shit before, or we can get into some, you know, actual content. Like, ESL's hosting their new fucking league tonight. Why don't we have more threads on that? Why do we still have to be, like, all, like, humped up on whether this one person's hacking or not? Like,
Yeah.
it's getting real fucking old. And,
Well,
like, esports is getting more professional. If I'm, like, let's look at Fragbite. Fragbite, like, did a lot of things that are really professional. Like, when something went wrong, they were the first one, nip it in the butt, get rid of it, right? Because they had a lot of big name sponsors there. They had, like, McDonald's
Yep.
and shit. So if people are going to come to StarCraft, if they look at, like, StarCraft areas and they see the top 20, 30 threads being just, like, complete drama, am I going to look into that and be like, oh, want a piece of that? I want to represent these guys.
I mean, just to pick up on the Rifkin thing as well, because, you know, I definitely want to say something about that. It makes me sick, actually. So I can really identify with, you know, that sort of inconsistent criticism. Like, right, the charm of Rifkin is that, like you say, he's not super serious. He's something different to these shirt and tie, you know, shoutcasters. He adds a bit of personality into the game. And this is something that I don't think would have necessarily flourished at the start of the game when everyone was treating it like, you know, so prim, so proper. This is an incredible, serious sport, actually, and it's like chess, but it's better than chess, and we should all take it very seriously and very stuffy, blah blah blah. So when he gets criticized for being funny with his cast and not being professional, imagine how it makes me feel. A guy who's done loads for StarCraft, way more than me in a lot of ways. You know, like all I've done is write about the game, maybe highlight a few scammers. But these guys are your community grassroots people. Without them, there is no scene. And people are criticizing him for the same thing people are sucking my dick for. I go host an event. I literally read up on the players that are there, you know, before I go. A lot of the time I have to get guys like Apollo to fucking tell me who they are, what have they won, what's been happening, right? And I sit and I put it all on cue cards. In fact, look. Hang on, I got one here because I was throwing all of these out. These are the DreamHack cards. Look, Targa. I even had to write that he's a fucking Zerg, right? That's, you know, this is the prep. This is the illusion. This guy knows all of his shit. He's super funny, and then everyone's like, "Oh, Richard, why can't we get more Richard Lewis because he's funny?" It's like you got funny dudes who actually even know the game. Why would you criticize those guys? It's ridiculous. So, you know, I don't understand it. I don't understand what these people need to do to just get treated with a bit of decency, a bit of respect. StarCraft 2 can't be super serious anymore. It needs to be treated amusingly. That's now the people who are left watching the game give a shit about the game. They care about the game. They're passionate about the community. We're all the same. So there's no need to be stuffed shirts. We're not attracting new people anymore. We need to accept that and just be like, fucking, we can all have a laugh and a joke about it now. And that's the ethos I embody, and I'm sure it's the ethos Rifkin does too. But, a good guy like that getting criticized, that sucks, man. It really does.
Yeah. I don't know. It just like it feels really hard to be part of the esports community. Like it's kind of like how I feel with sports. Like I need to do that. Like I watch my teams. I watch Manchester, but I had to unsub from our soccer and our like Red Devils and everything because it just gets the drama and everything just takes a fucking toll on you. I don't know how you live, man. Like I can barely last like 3 fucking hours a day reading this shit, and you work in it.
This broadcast is sponsored by BrewDog. That's how I fucking live, man. You just, you got to just fucking deal with it. Like, it's serious. Like, the last couple of weeks have been absolutely fucking awful for me. I mean, but I ain't going to whine about it, because this is the thing. This is what you sign on for. When people love you in esports, they'll literally drop to their knees and suck your dick for not a lot of much. Like, you don't deserve to get your dick sucked, right? Simple as that. You can do something so mundane like, oh, Richard, you retweeted that tweet and it was so nice of you, and then, like, that's it. Like, those people think you're a fucking god. And you're like, some people believe that bullshit. They buy into it. And, or you can just be a good caster or a good player for like 2 months and everyone will suck your dick and you don't deserve it, right? But when things are bad, you can't then turn around and go, oh my God, this community sucks, because you've had your dick sucked non-stop for nothing, ridiculously, It's like, I don't know, okay, so to use a very bad analogy, like, when you've got like how like the Black Widow spider, the female, she fucks the male every which way but loose and then like eats his head and kills him. Well, he can't be too upset by the end. That's all I'm saying. Like, you got to pay the piper. It can't all be good. It can't all just be non-stop spider sex. You know what I mean? Like, eventually your head's getting bit off. That's how it works. And I say it to everybody. You got to take the praise with the same degree of criticism, same degree of pinch of salt that you take the criticism with, because they've both got to be treated as equally meaningless. Fans are very strange people, and I'm always touched when I get a nice piece of fan mail. I never let it fucking go to my head, though, and start thinking, this guy says I'm the reason that he's gone to university to study journalism. Like, I'm like a father figure to all of these people. And you're like, fuck that, man. If you start acting like Cyber Christ, you're gonna have a fucking bad time, like, to paraphrase South Park. So, I don't know, dude. I cope with it because, like I say, the praise and the criticism are as equally meaningless in a lot of ways. Maybe it's sad it has to be that way, but that's ultimately how you stay grounded and stop being an egotistical asshole when you go to events. So, But anyway, look, I don't know if you've got a final point you want to end on, Mark, before we move to another caller, but if you do, spit it out.
Okay, real quick. Like, I know I've been referring to like community and Reddit and shit as general like single being entities, but I know there's more than one person on Reddit, as surprising as I can seem at times. I just get frustrated at the fucking jerk. Like 3 weeks ago, everyone's like, "Oh my God, ESL is a piece of shit," and now it's like, "Oh my God, Riot, we need more international events. ESL proves how great this shit is." The constant change. That's what.
Yeah, but what did I say? You can watch the thing. It might have been a trash talk, or it might have been a First Blood. I don't know which one, but you can watch. And I said this for about 2 weeks, that this is exactly what was going to happen. ESL expansion. Oh my God! Like, ESL should never be allowed to do another League of Legends event ever again. Fuck these guys. Boycott IEM San Jose. Blah blah blah. As soon as IEM San Jose happens, oh my God! ESL have done it again. Like, why can't they do more tournaments? Why can't we have more IEMs for League? If anything goes wrong at Cologne, the circle jerk will go back the opposite way. It's just, this is how it is. This is the esports community. Like they're never gonna fucking be consistent in their thinking. I mean, for one reason, it ain't always the same people anyway. If you try and think about Reddit as one entity, you know, like you're wrong. What you've got is you've got like, I don't know, about any one thing. You've got people that agree in the positive, people that agree in the negative, and a bunch of, like, if it was politics, they'd be called floating voters. They're just sheep. They're just not very, you know, they don't have any strong opinions. They like to bandwagon. They like to get on board anything that's popular and trendy, any memes that are, you know, vogue. They're involved in that. So if a thing occurs and the positive people get there first and they, you know, put their flag in the ground and say, you know what, let's all suck ESL's dick, you know, and say how great they are, then the floating voters, when they arrive, when it gets to the front page, they're never going to go against the jerk. They're not interested. They'll come in and they'll be like, yeah, ESL are the best. ESL are amazing. And then by the time the negative people turn up, every time they say something, they just get downvoted because the floating voters they've already been persuaded by the stronger argument. And if a thread gets put out and it's the negative people get there first, ESL suck, we should fucking, you know, destroy ESL, burn their offices to the ground, and drag the staff through the streets and horsewhip them, the floating voter is going to be like, well, these guys sound pretty fucking serious, actually. They sound really serious about how bad ESL are. They must have done something. So then what they do is they agree with them and they're like, yeah, fuck ESL, the boo. And then the nice guys come in and go, yeah, but what about all this other good shit we said over there? And guess what? They get downvoted as well by the masses. But that's how it is. You've got your two dominant fucking personality archetypes and it's a bunch of fucking, you know, I'm loath to use the term idiots, but easily led people in the middle that don't want to challenge things. And this is what I mean. I've said it before. Reddit is an exercise in turning people into intellectual lab rats. You say what you need to say to get the reward. You press the button, you get the cheese. But it's not necessarily representative of what everybody thinks.
Well, yeah, but like there's all these now like power users, and it's weird to think, but League has their own ones, and like even some of them are pro players. Like look at any fucking thread that ever has a post from Dyrus in it. And even if it disagrees with the OP, I dare you to find a top 50 comment that disagrees with it or that's not sucking Dyrus's dick.
Yeah, like, but this is why this is why, you know, again, the other thing that happens, this is why all the AMAs are usually worthless between the players, because the top comment in every AMA is always another pro player doing like a little in-joke. Remember when? Or, you know, it'll be like some nonsense, like eating cheesecake tonight. And that'll be like, you know, there was a cheesecake-related incident in the house when they were all wasted. We don't know about it. But fuck it, let's all upvote that meaningless comment. Like, people who upvote other people's in-jokes, I think, are ultimately you know, they are the fucking example of everything that's wrong with Reddit, ultimately. You've got no way to gauge whether that comment has any worth or merit to the discussion, but because of who said it, you think, fuck it, let's just upvote it anyway. Maybe I'll get invited to fucking, you know, double lifts for a cup of tea, you know, if I fucking upvote his comment, and we'll all just sit there and be like, ooh, isn't this great, and not at all weird, you know.
No, fuck it. He'll share his hot Asian grills with you. Come on, let's get it right.
Yeah. Well, you know, I heard Travis is the fixer for those things anyway. But look, man, Mark, it was great to talk to you. I'm going to let you go and do your thing. And thanks a lot for calling in. I definitely hope to talk to you again sometime. Try not to get too upset with a jerk. It could be worse, man. You know, you could be me.
I'll keep that in mind, man.
I say that to so many people. In fact, I've got a job on the Samaritans hotline, and that's just all I say to people. They just call me up like, I'm at the end of my rope. I'm like, brother, do you know who I am? I'm Richard Lewis, the esports journalist. And they go, damn! And they just put the phone out and said, sorry, man, let's put it in perspective. And they go lead happy lives. So you think about that next time. Anyway, have a lovely evening. We'll get on to the next caller. Peace.
You too, man. Peace.
Laters. There you go, Sam. I can't help but feel I went off on a few tangents there.
Yeah, that's alright, though. Alright, we're going to try John again. He's alive.
Are we actually going to do it?
Yep.
Well, just let me get my other plug in for Brewdog. This is
are you actually sponsored by Brewdog? So where the fuck is my beer, if you are?
Dude, you do this.
That's what I drink. Oh my god. Right.
So this beer that we got sent was the Libertine Black Ale. It's very nice. It's made to a traditional black ale recipe in Britain. And again, brewed out.
Fucking sellout.
And I'll sell out.
Lonely sellout. Not even fucking letting me in. Alright, here we go.
John.
Hello.
Hey, John, are you with me?
Yeah. Sorry about that. BT trolled me super fucking hard.
That's all right, dude. It was great. You trolled me by proxy.
I know, right? Like I was like, I'm not a troll, and then I just drop off. It's like awful.
Awesome,
Like
awesome work. So you want to talk about Twitch and Good Game?
Yes.
So let's do. Tell me your thoughts, man.
Well, firstly, I gotta ask, as like the premier esports journalist, right? Like if an esports player takes a dump in the forest, you're normally there with the bucket and a fucking notepad to write an article about it.
Yeah, well, when it comes to Twitch, dude, they like even though I've worked for Twitch. In fact, I got the Twitch hoodie here. I'm sat on it, right? Like even though I've worked for Twitch at a couple of events, and I got great working relationships with a lot of people over there. They keep their shit locked down. Finding leaks from Twitch, they're so well disciplined, so well drilled. Even during the Google story, so when everyone thought they were getting bought by Google,
Yeah.
they were just throwing out so many red herrings, saying things like we couldn't possibly comment on rumors. So then you're like, oh, that does it mean it's true or doesn't it? And nobody said Amazon. Nobody. People said Facebook. People said everything. Nobody said Amazon until it came out. Bam. They handle their shit properly. There's very few organizations I've not been able to sort of jimmy a crack in. Like someone made a comment on Reddit the other day saying, like, I wonder who Richard has on film doing coke and molesting children to get all his esports information. Then nobody. Obviously, I'd report that thing to the authorities. Sorry, trigger warning. But like fucking with Twitch, I don't even think it would matter. Like you just can't get any leverage at all to get any stories out of them. So this for me was even a surprise. Literally, I got the press release sent to me on Skype when it was released for the public, and I was like, what the fuck? So, I mean, I haven't even had a lot of time to digest what it all might mean yet, but I've certainly been talking to people, and I've got a few thoughts about it. But what are yours?
Well, we're very close to a Western Kesp, aren't we? Like in Brood War, Kespa was signed up with the OGN network or whatever that was back then.
Yeah.
So now all of a sudden we have a group of organizations that all handle where they all get their sponsorship money, and now they're signed up with the premier Western broadcast platform.
Mm-hmm.
So it's weird, and like in the 20 years of esports, we're still doing the exact same things as we've always pretty much done. Swings and roundabouts.
But I mean, so you use the term a Western Kesper. Well, why would that necessarily be a bad thing, John?
Well, firstly, you like to break into the Korean StarCraft scene. The way it seemed to me is you had to be of a certain size, right? Like it became almost impossible for unknown players to like break into that scene, and as well as all that, like how do you it actually caused the scene to stagnate a little bit, like.
Yeah.
Players aren't getting a lot of money, and the top players are making tons. But if you're the second players, you're just on like you got a little pallet in the corner of a Kespa flat and a bowl of rice, and that was it. Play StarCraft for 20 hours a day. Now, I don't think Good Game's going to be like that bad or anything, but potentially it could be, right?
Well, I mean, for me, okay, so the biggest issue I would have, say, with Kesper, for example, was the way that it held dominion over almost every aspect of a player's life. So, for me, as a player, like, this is one of the things that I've rallied against with Riot, and people have said it's Riot hating. It's not Riot hating. It's actually about trying to create an environment where the boundaries are very clear, and that is that if I'm a player and I sign with an organization, I want the organization to be in charge of me, right? Not the manufacturers of the game that I play. or not the not a governing body that run tournaments, or that somehow has been deemed the de facto floating overlord of everything to do with esports in a particular country. I want to represent my employers, and I want my employers to dictate the terms of whether or not I succeed or fail in that endeavor. Right? That seems to me fair, and we can all understand it. With Kesper controls, you've got to meet certain standards, and a lot of the time those standards aren't always to the benefit of the players. So they seem to be a governing body, but actually, what are they governing? So Kesper, for example, can dictate salary caps. They can keep salaries artificially low or artificially high, depending on whatever they want. They've got that control. They can tell organizations that they need to operate in a certain way, or you won't be signed up to Kesper. You won't get a cut of the Kesper money. They choose who you stream with. As it was, Kesper signed a deal with Azubu, and that opened the floodgates, to a lot of Korean players streaming on that platform. Now that deal was somewhere between $160,000 to $200,000 a month, is what Kesper made from Azubu. Now, I don't know how much of that has been passed on to the players, what sort of financial incentives they get. But already we're starting to see problems, Like there's you can see how that level of control and influence over a player's livelihood can be detrimental. Doesn't have to be, but can be. And now we've got Twitch with the Good Game Agency. Good Game Agency was going out there, basically snapping up a lot of talent. And, they wanted to create new brands. And there was talk about that all the teams under the Good Game umbrella would say to tournament organizers, actually, collectively, we're going to use our bargaining power to get, shares of ticket sales, shares of streaming revenue. Otherwise, we don't turn up. Right? And it seemed to be about creating this monopoly of control for a very set few amount of people, which is why when I saw this statement from Alex Garfield about how he wants to, the Good Game Agency wants to help as many people as possible, it comes with a caveat. You've got to be, the point you were making, you've got to be of a certain size. You've got to take on board all of the advice from the people within the Good Game Agency. I mean, they're the people coming up with the brands. They're the people coming up with the teams a lot of the time.
Yeah, you gotta have the right image.
Yeah.
Tweet about the right things. Do all these fan meets and stuff like that. Like you have to be the marketing arm for these sponsors.
Yep.
Potentially.
So, it made me laugh a little bit, but that doesn't mean that now that Twitch have bought it, it won't be a little bit different. But here's the thing that worries me. So. Why are Twitch deciding to buy now? I mean, I think we should probably take a very long think about that. Like, I'm privy to certain information in my in my job as a journalist, but I think people aren't asking the right question.
Well, is it because there's a whole bunch of streaming platforms appearing?
Well, yes and no. I mean, it's obviously about that because you want to secure as much talent as possible. So if you buy an agency, right, then obviously you get on board all of that talent. But there's a conflict of interest, in my opinion, and that is that if you start bringing an agency in, well, let's say an agency acts like an agency, and what agents do, as I'm sure we all know, but for the benefit of those who don't, an agent is meant to represent their client's best interests. They can go out and get opportunities for you in terms of sponsors. They can get work for you. They basically pitch your talents, your abilities, your image, your prowess in a particular field to a bunch of prospective buyers who are willing to attach their brand to you in a bid for mutually beneficial gain, for financial gain primarily for you. So let's just say now I'm in the Good Game Agency and I've been offered a really big deal with another streaming platform.
You can't take it anymore.
Well, this is the thing. I'm sure Twitch will say that isn't the case. But this is where the problem arises.
But you no longer play for EG.
Well, no, not even that. The problem arises when the people in the Good Game Agency go, well, look, you're right. This MLG TV deal is a lot of money. And, Zubu got a lot of money on the table, and Hitbox have put a lot of money on the table. But we think the smart play, and we represent your interests. We represent you. We're an agency. We think the smart play is to go with Twitch, who we just so happen to be owned by. Now, if I'm a client of the Good Game Agency, if I'm a player or whatever, I'm going to be thinking, I don't know whether I'll buy this or not. I don't know whether I believe this. I don't know whether I can trust this. And it might be good advice. I mean, Twitch have had a monopoly effectively in the streaming, space right from the get-go, after they beat Owned, in the Great War. After they beat them, they fucking have dominated. They've had a monopoly, and they've wielded it incredibly responsibly. I mean, I've got to say this: there are so many companies that would have the kind of monopoly Twitch has in streaming, and they don't wield it responsibly. They act like cunts. But Twitch haven't done that. Twitch have allowed streamers to go and get better deals from streaming platforms that go bust, and then they say, "Can I come back to Twitch?" And they go, "Yeah, sure." On the same deal you went away with, no problem. They're not even bitchy about it. They don't even undercut them. Twitch could have sued numerous teams, numerous organizations, numerous players for violating contracts when they changed streaming platforms. Never did it. The Twitch ethos is they'll always come back to us because we're so good at what we do. And they look after all of their talent. They've got great guys. They have really wielded the power of a monopoly incredibly responsibly. But now, with an agency and talent and players, it's just a bit murky for me.
And there was the other fact, like DreamHack was using Viagame for Hearthstone, right? So potentially, is this a potential way to put the squeeze on tournament organizers to, if you want my teams to turn up, you're streaming on Twitch?
Yeah. I mean, look, I think it could be. Look, here's the reality. They can use this any way they want, because here's the thing. One thing we all know Alex Garfield is very good at is, getting big sponsors and big companies involved in esports. He's done it historically. He's made money for lots of players. He's created 2 brands that have been world champions, and at the top dominate the market space. And he'll do it again and again and again and again. Alex Garfield is an amazing businessman. He's got a great business brain. With that business brain, with that talent he has, actually can come a little bit of selfishness, as you'd expect. And sometimes you can get so focused in on the goal and winning that you can actually harm the industry that it's a part of. And definitely the rise of EG and their cornering of that market, it's no coincidence that correlates to other American organizations going down the shitter. I've talked to numerous North American organizations, and they're like, we can't get sponsors anymore because they just say, why would we go with you when we could go with EG? And there's no answer to that question, because you have to go, well, I guess if I was you, yeah, I'd probably do the same. Now, I'm sure Alex would say that's just part and parcel of success. But ultimately, there's a harmful effect. It fucks up the ecosystem. And now with Twitch behind them and other brands to come, I don't know. There's cause for concern. And someone in the chat said, you absolutely should never accept a monopoly. I agree with you in principle. The point is, human nature prevents monopolies from working in practice. People get greedy, people abuse power, and it always comes down to the same thing. But ultimately, if we were all altruistic and good people, there wouldn't be an issue. You could have a monopoly that would act entirely in people's interests. And Twitch so far has been a very good example of that. That's all I'm saying.
Well, again, there are 2 types of monopolies. There are natural monopolies, which sort of happened in Twitch's case. It survived because it was the only twitching service that, was paying its players and, had its shit together. And then there's the other kind of monopoly where some big third force says, you can only use this. This is it. Pay us all the fucking money or get fucked.
Yep. Yep.
And Good Game hasn't been around long enough to show that it's, the natural sort of monopoly. So it's a very sort of difficult issue.
Okay, so here's what we're going to do, John. We're going to bring somebody else onto the call. My producers messaged me saying we're going to bring someone to argue a different viewpoint. Sam, do we do it while John's still on the call?
We can do both, whatever's good.
Should we do like a non-celebrity deathmatch?
Basically, he wants to come in and talk about how this affects and neutralizes other agencies in the business and kind of stunts growth of the entire industry.
Okay, well, fucking let's do it.
Let's go.
Oh god, I think I'm not going to disagree with him though.
I know. The points actually sound similar, Sam.
Yeah,
No,
like
I didn't say argue. I didn't say argue. I just meant a different angle of the point.
Fucking hell, you build this like it was just fight.
Who do you want me to bring on? Fucking Alex Garfield, fuck you all.
Yeah, Alex Garfield's just gonna come on and just spray his fucking, cash out of his dick like fucking wall.
What if I'd come on and tell me how this is just an empirically good thing? Oh, this isn't Western Casper, and I'm talking at my fucking ass.
Yeah, something like that. Okay, well, hang on a minute. Apparently, we're also right back on the stream. So, I see someone called, well, you didn't even tell me his name.
His name is Kurt.
Yeah, this is Kurt. I thought so. I thought it was Kurt. I just
Hey, buddy.
Hey, man, I ain't spoke to you in a fucking while on one of these shows.
It's been too long, man. Been too long.
Yep. So, Kurt, you want to make a point, which we thought maybe was disagreeing with John, but probably isn't. But just make the point, man, because you're a super smart
Probably
dude.
not. Probably not. No, I mean, here's my thing. I want to try to be optimistic a lot like I think you want to be about it, because I think Hi-Rez Bart made a kind of good point. I'm not sure if you saw this tweet or not. How the company that he had the absolute best experience with bought the company that he had the absolute worst experience with. You know what I mean? So he's kind of he's personally hoping that one rubs off on the other, kind of thing. I'm more than anything, I'm happy for the guys at GG. I will say that, right? Like, there are some really good guys at Good Game Agency that have been working for over a decade for something like this. So I'm really happy for them. But as someone who is represented by an agency, right? Like, you're represented by Jim, you have to kind of worry about the implications that this could have, right?
I mean, I think the first thing was, just to interrupt a little bit, what made me laugh was in the press release, Good Game said, I think they were the first agency. First esports agency, I think is how they worded it.
Yeah, and
which
be
isn't
honest, they
true, 'cause, I mean, EMG were around way before them. By about,
but
2 years or something?
not necessarily, right? Like, from our understanding, Good Game was in the background of EG for years. They just didn't really announce that that's what they were officially doing until they got ready to launch multiple brands at a time and things like that. That's what I believe has actually happened. I mean, because let's be honest, EG was an agency way before they actually announced the fact that they were splitting up Good Game from EG.
Yeah, that is true. That is true.
And I don't fault them at all for saying that. They're the first and the largest by far, probably, in my opinion. But it is essentially what could happen. Kind of helps talk about the fact of what might happen. The look, for instance, any events that Twitch runs right now, for instance, let's say the recent Coke thing. You know, I'm talking about the Game-a-thon or whatever. You know what I'm talking about, right? There's 5 people hired to do that, right? Like, they're all 5 people that are going to play games for Coke and things like that, which is awesome. Those are 5 people that aren't currently represented by Good Game Agency. Does that job then become later on down the line? Does it become that, hey, we're going to point this towards more people that actually are represented by Good Game? You know. They could do that. I'm not saying they necessarily will, because, like you said, Twitch has had a monopoly for quite a while now, and they've wielded it responsibly, unlike I think most people thought they would. But It's very weird.
I mean, it is strange as well because I don't necessarily see the synergy. Like Twitch as a platform is great because it says come one, come all, and you can make a name for yourself. If you grow to a certain size, we'll make you a partner, and beyond there, the fucking sky's the limit, and you can go on to be like a Twitch brand ambassador. They know all of their success stories, and they actually don't just measure their success in dollars and cents, viewer numbers. I was having a chat with one of the guys who works there, a guy called Chris. He was telling me about a streamer whose name escapes me, but he's a World of Warcraft streamer, and he gets his steady 300, 400, and he wakes up, and he lives in like a flat in the East End of London, and he wakes up and he starts streaming. And he streams, he runs his ads. He says, right, I'm gonna take a break. I'm gonna have a takeaway. Eats a takeaway. Streams for 12 hours. Goes to bed, and through that, he gets to pay his rent. He doesn't have to work a 9 or 5. And that for me is the ultimate success story. Not having to go and work a shit job. Yeah, wicked. You won the game. And
although he's played World of Warcraft.
Yeah, which
which is a shit job.
Success stories can't always be across the board, right? But this is what I mean. The guy, and Twitch are hyper aware of that. They're like, look, this is what we have enabled people to do. So if you bring a talent agency into that equation, what baggage comes with that, Kurt? I mean, do you think we get to a stage where it's like I say, they're going to kind of corner an element of the professional player market where it's like, if it makes sense to go to Good Game Agency, but by proxy, it makes sense to go to Twitch, right?
Well, you're also talking about something that's not a traditional agency either, right? Like, Good Game is, in my opinion, at least, not a traditional agency from the way that we think of it, right? Like an agency doesn't own wholly parts of its brands most of the time. An agency will just be contracted out by a brand. They get a percentage of the sales that they make. A lot of the times at least, right? Like think of a celebrity agency, for instance. Like that's just what a lot of people immediately go to. You're talking about an agency that owns at least 3 brands that we know of, right? Like they own Alliance, they own Evil Geniuses, and they own the D2L. Like these are brands that they own. They own a league and 2 of the most popular teams in the world. Well, ipso facto, now Twitch owns those brands. You know what I mean? It's scary shit. It really is. It's amazing for Good Game. That's what I'm more excited about. That's the only reason I'm actually optimistic is because of the people that I know at Good Game that have wielded this somewhat responsibly, both at Good Game and at Twitch, But it is fairly scary, and I think even for them not to admit that, they're being a little crazy. Like behind private doors, they would admit, whoa, like if we weren't involved in this, we would be thinking the same way.
Yeah, but this has been a big problem, From the moment the Good Game Agency was talked about, everybody was like, is esports ready for this? Is esports? And we were talking about just the Good Game Agency element of it. If they went out there and did what they were talking about, which I don't know if it's still going to happen, but if they went out there and fucking did the stuff they were talking about, which was sign up another 4 Dota teams, poach players from existing organizations, make them captains for new brands that they were going to design. And literally,
Alex has been trying to do that for a long time. If you remember right, I remember back when Quantic was around. And this was actually leaked. Like he got all the teams together and had this big meeting about like, hey, look, we need to tell both Riot and MLG, don't fuck with us because if you do, here's what we'll do. We'll run a online event the exact same time of your event and just compete for viewership, and let's see how well we'll do when no teams show up to your event.
There was another secret meeting actually quite recently, off the back of the Good Game Agency, making these moves. It never got reported on, never got talked about, but there was a meeting with several organizations who I won't name, several high-ranking organizations, several prominent people from broadcasting platforms as well, and they all got together to talk about, how we can make this all work. And these things, and Alex has always been a ringleader for this type of stuff. Again, rumor has it he was one of the original people who were like telling managers to reject the original Riot LCS contracts. He's always been somebody who sees himself as a ringleader, and that's cool. Again, I love that. I love the idea of there being people out there that are not going to take any shit, but equally the problem becomes what you then use that collective power, to get. And esports is very fragile.
And it makes it more complicated.
Yeah.
It makes it more complicated now that Twitch owns GG, in my opinion, too. Like, before, it was very independent, right? Like, we knew that Alex was fighting for his own personal interests within the confounds of his teams. That's what everyone does. That's what every agency does. If you didn't do that, you wouldn't be doing your fucking job correctly. So no one blames him for that. No one blames him or anyone else in GG for doing that. Now that they're owned by Twitch, an organization known slightly less for their we're fighting for our interest and our own interest only, then what does that become, right? Like, what happens? So it's very weird.
Okay, so just a couple of final thoughts from both of you guys about this topic, because we're going to take a break and then we're going to bring an attorney in to talk about this shit.
Oh, excellent.
So, but we'll let you guys get away. So, Kurt, your final thoughts, and then John, your final thoughts.
My final thoughts. First off, I do think that it's probably going to be less of a big deal than we bring up now. Either way, it's going to be a big deal, but I don't think, I truly believe that Twitch will have a positive effect on what we are thinking in our heads might happen. Sure, it's a monopoly. Twitch is essentially going to own a couple brands, huge brands within esports, but I do think they can probably wield it responsibly, so I think it's going to be okay. I'm incredibly happy for people like Scott, who have been working for a decade towards something like this, and Lecter or Colin and Freytag and all those guys. Like, they're amazing. Same way for Alex. So, about it.
Okay, John, your final thoughts?
I suspect a lot of the effects will be completely fucking invisible. We still won't have a fucking clue how it works, how the agency fucking works. You potentially getting more shit if you ever leak an EG related story, and basically there's no counterbalance to this, super powerful force in the system yet, and it could potentially screw everything.
Not yet, but let me tell you this. Trust me, if Twitch are making these moves now, believe me, they're doing it because they've heard that there's other big things at play. I think so. They're getting their blows in early. This has been a move that probably wouldn't have happened unless there wasn't some big stuff afoot. And what that big stuff is, who knows? But I'll wager they're not going to be the last major company to buy an agency or invest heavily in esports. I think we'll see some.
What do you mean? What do you mean? Who knows? You know. Don't give me that.
Keston Azubu, what?
You know.
Look, can we just get to the break?
Fucking Richard.
No, Richard doesn't know anything. I think we've established that. Riot have proved me wrong again. I know fuck all. But look, guys, I want to thank you for calling in. It's a huge topic. I know we're going to have lots to talk about. Kurt, it's always a pleasure to hear your lovely voice. John, a pleasure to meet you as well. And I'm glad you weren't trolling me earlier when you dropped from the call. But we'll say goodbye to you for now. So there we go. John and Kurt talking about the various merits and demerits of Twitch acquiring the Good Game Agency. But where do we go from here? Well, apparently we're going to talk to an attorney. Is that right, Sam? Have you checked his credentials?
Well, no, I haven't exactly seen his law school certificate, but seems fine. He said he's an attorney from San Francisco.
There you go, but you wouldn't even know. You even called it a law school
What the fuck am I?
Could have just said, like,
his degree, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm from Port Talbot. I don't know fucking anything about university. Fuck off.
Just said he could have said like any other shit. Like, yeah, I'm an attorney, and he's gonna come on and troll the shit out of us.
He mentioned the law, alright? It fucking sold me.
Oh well, so it's gonna be in the case of versus Bane Law.
Oh yeah, and CLG just got fucked too.
Yeah,
10
yeah,
grand
yeah.
fine.
So while we're talking about legal stuff, breaking news while we're on the show. CLG did get fucked. They got fucked to the tune of 10 grand. I know there's one guy in the chat that's got a big grin on his face. Odie, type something when you hear the message. I'm looking forward to reading it. But, if it, me and Michael, oh shit, he hates it when I call him that. Me and Mike, we had a chat about it. Obviously, when we were over at DreamHack, we filmed it. The interviews up on the YouTube channel. He did say that it's super important for teams to act with complete propriety, and that he can do it, and he has done it. And he gave an example of a time he did it. Why can't everybody else? And made this point. It's not just about esports. It's not just about we're just a little industry and it's wrong to try and take other people's shit. This is called tortious interference. It's a huge deal. If you do it in US law, a company tries to entice somebody else to break another contract to join their company, you get fucked for it. Massive fines. Not 10 grand, massive fines. It's brutal. Look up, some stuff on tortious interference. Anyway, we'll take a quick break. Sam.
Yep.
Let's show him the image.
Oh yeah, okay.
My favourite troll account. My favourite troll account, apart from Anprag, is this troll account. It's Reddit lol pro. He's a funny guy. He needs more followers. It's at Reddit lol pro. You'll find him. But he made this for me. Said I am the premier esports martyr. And he's absolutely right. So we'll let you all have a look at this. We're going to go to a break. I've just seen it. You did 2 of them. You asshole. But anyway, I am the premier esports martyr. I'm going to take a break. I'm going to martyr myself with some more beers from Brewdog, which is sponsoring this broadcast. You can get your bottles online from the Brewdog shop at www.brewdog.com. And I certainly recommend you do. They make the best beers ever. But we're going to take a quick break, and then when we get back, we're going to have an attorney talk about the Twitch and Good Game acquisition and what it all means. Back in 5. Hello and welcome back to Trash Talk. I'm your host, Richard Lewis. We're going to be talking about all sorts of stuff, but what we've been focusing a lot of our attentions on is, of course, the big news in esports that Twitch have bought Good Game Agency and what that could mean. Now, to try and shed a bit of light on that and place it in a more intellectual context, we've actually had someone who's an attorney call in. We've seen his credentials. We are going to go out on a limb and verify them. And this is probably, the most sober I've actually been when talking to an attorney. Usually, whenever I'm talking to legal counsel, I'm a lot more drunk than this. So, looking forward to hear what you've got to say. So, Sean, our attorney, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Richard.
Awesome. You've got a great microphone.
It's what those dirty legal dollars get you.
Well, look, Sean. First of all, just for the purposes of the call, would you mind saying where you passed the bar, or just giving something, a little tidbit, so they believe you?
Yeah, I'm a practicing attorney in California. I went to UC Berkeley for law school.
Okay, right. Well, that's it. Now everyone's going to believe you, and you sound very authoritative, and you've got a great microphone. So, tell me about this Twitch and Good Game deal.
Well, I've been reading a fair amount. Obviously, there's not a ton of information about the specifics of the deal, but knowing what I know about the Amazon acquisition of Twitch, this is likely Twitch sort of passing money down the chain into the esports infrastructure. And I really doubt Twitch will exercise much, if any, direct control over Good Game. A lot of the concerns people are having are essentially surrounding what would happen if, Twitch started to create exclusionary agreements with the various teams under its umbrella in order to exclude new streaming entrants from the market. Like, as a preliminary matter, there really aren't any streaming platforms out there right now that are competing in the level of quality that Twitch is able to offer. So it would be a very difficult analysis to go through to actually say, they're having a substantial anti-competitive effect because, you don't have competing platforms which otherwise would be just as good, but now they're using this new power they have to exclude it. So on that level, I don't think it's problematic. Where I do see it possibly becoming problematic is you have an agency that's really not representing players. It's representing teams. So you're creating it, like the reason that professional sports leagues can escape antitrust, is because there is a players union, and then there's a consortium of teams that's held together, usually under a non-profit type of setting. The esports world is weird and different, and one of the reasons that there hasn't been a strong need for a union is because you have so many independent entities that are offering the prize pools and doing everything else. Riot has come probably the closest. They run the show, and you have to sort of take their deal or leave it, which could give enough to want a union. But what this acquisition does and could do, depending on how large this grows with the influx of cash, is it could create sort of a cross-game banding of teams, which would then really create a stronger need for a players union, just because the players, A, are young, B, are unsophisticated, and they're not going to have access to the information that, say, professional athletes in other sports will have access to when, conducting negotiations on what is or is not a fair contract. And I think if we sit back for too long, the other thing is the talent in esports is so transient that players don't stick around for that long. It really wouldn't be that hard for organizations to, basically be paying young kids very little money for a few years, and then they move on.
Generally, how they operate, actually.
Right, but we don't know if that, like, we kind of assume it's because they don't have that much money, right? That the generally low amount of money getting paid to certain players, in part, is because we just need to allow esports to grow and thrive. And we assume that the teams are doing that calculus, but we don't really know that because we don't have access to the information. So we're kind of giving them benefit of the doubt. So when they're banding together, I think a lot of the concern people are showing is, it becomes, how long do we keep giving the benefit of the doubt before we actually see numbers? Like, we don't know how profitable TSM is. We don't know what the players on TSM make versus the players on CLG versus the players on Curse. Where in professional sports, there's like total transparency on, how much money is going from the league to each team, what are the player contracts, what's the structure of the contract, and all of that stuff is driven by union.
So just a couple of questions for you, Sean. I think the first thing is, what would you say then to the people that are, panicky? A short argument to kind of say, actually, this isn't necessarily a bad thing. This isn't a creation of a worrying, troublesome esports monopoly.
I'm not really sure what they'd be monopolizing at this point. Good Game Agency owns 2 teams, and it has acquired interest in some other teams, but it's basically EG and Alliance, neither of which are now in League of Legends. But from the statements that Good Game released alongside this deal, it sounded like they really were intent not on becoming a ownership consortium, but rather on, bringing in money to the scene and then distributing it to people, and people are welcome to play ball with them. They're not big enough yet that they could exclude other people from trying to bring other money into the scene. Curse independently has done a pretty good job. They brought in Nissan. They've sort of made moves here and there where they've brought interesting sources of money into the scene. Teams like that, teams like Dignitas, teams like Fnatic, if they grouped together, there's no particular reason to think that Good Game, solely because of its relationship to Twitch, would have more access to, advertising dollars from sponsors.
So just on that point, then, theoretical situation certainly has no bearing in reality yet. There's no grounding that anything like this might happen. But we've already talked about how one of Good Game Agency's goals was to get a group of teams together that had enough bargaining power so they could say, we're going to pull out of a tournament if you don't give us a share of spectator, ticket fees or streaming revenue. So on the point of the latter, of streaming revenue, now that they're owned by a streaming platform, let's say it would be in the best interests of players under the Good Game Agency to exercise that right to remove unless they get a share of the streaming revenue. But because Good Game Agency are owned by Twitch, Twitch is owned by Amazon, and let's say the event in itself that we're talking about is being streamed exclusively on Twitch, they decide, actually, you know what? We'll withdraw our right to threaten strike action in this juncture. Then those same teams go to another tournament, another event, where let's say it's streamed exclusively on, again, for sake of argument, Azubu. And they go, well, now we're going to exercise our right to strike. And we're going to pull out of this tournament and tank the viewership and potentially kill it because you're streaming exclusively on Azubu. And I'm not saying any of that would happen, but if it did, surely there's enough conflict of interest there to say that actually this is getting close to this monopoly, that's what they would be monopolizing.
Right. So you're saying that Good Game would organize collective action of the teams that it represents or the
Yeah,
teams
they
it
call
owns.
themselves an agency, but I believe in ethos they like to think that they're a union, effectively. And it's been talked about in the past, back when they were just the Good Game Agency, before Twitch purchasing them was even on the horizon, that this is one of the things they would do to ensure more money for the people under their umbrella. They would threaten to withdraw from tournaments unless they got a share of streaming revenue or spectator ticket revenue or both. Now, if they're owned by Twitch and an event is streaming exclusively on Twitch under a Twitch partnership deal, an agreement, or just because they want to, because they think it's the best, and the Good Game Agency goes, well, we're not going to strike for this one, just because. I think this is a good event to do for us all. Then when a rival company is broadcasting something exclusively, like Viagame, for example, did with the Hearthstone tournament at DreamHack, or as I'm sure other events will happen in the future, if the Good Game Agency represents those teams and then says, well, we should strike for this, we should ask for a share of the streaming revenue, that creates, this conflict of interest and a not level playing field when it comes to terms of competition.
So I think there's a couple things. One is that the ability of teams to push back against organizers is probably a good thing in order to ensure the money does act. But it only works if people get information. So to the extent that, for example, like ESL, because I was just recently at IEM San Jose, if they are not transparent about what the financials actually look like from their event with the teams, then the teams might end up taking an unreasonable position. And if, they're part of Good Game, they might do it collectively.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to we would otherwise strike, but because it's on Twitch, we're not going to, or we think this is overall a pretty good tournament for us, but it's being broadcast on Azubu, therefore we're going to strike. That would be problematic, but there's a couple things to think about. One would be, is it Twitch that is controlling Good Game Agency, making them do that, or is Good Game Agency making these decisions on its own? And then in light of the business realities facing them, is it an objectively reasonable business decision for them to make? Solely because they're associated with Twitch doesn't mean they can't also legitimately decide that it's in their interest to participate with Twitch as compared to other streaming platforms, especially if, Twitch is actually going to give them an objectively better financial deal, for example. Like if Twitch is willing to say, if you are all Good Game teams have, for their streamers, they get, 75% instead of 50% of subscriber revenue, as an incentive. It's objectively reasonable for the teams who are members of Good Game to stream only on Twitch then, because they actually will make more money. So it kind of goes back to what I opened with, which is, are the other options legitimate options, either in terms of quality or in terms of price? And then you'd have to look at why the teams are making the decisions they do. I think the fear is teams will make irrational decisions that will be harmful to the industry because of their association with Good Game. I think what makes it really unclear is that Good Game is both two teams, because it is still EG and Alliance, and then it's representing other teams. And so it's very unclear what those lines are. And I would be not that surprised if Good Game ultimately ended divesting EG and Alliance and had them become independent teams, just so that you could get much clearer lines where you have, Good Game is the umbrella, then there are all these independently organized teams that are all having money funneled to them through Good Game, and they're able to collectively bargain with, bigger sponsors to get them interested, because all of a sudden, instead of one team's 40,000 views a day, they're getting, 5 teams, 500,000 views. And then, you can get interest from bigger people who aren't going to make small deals, but would rather make big deals. So to that extent, I think it's going to be good. I hope that it does encourage players to sort of sit up and take notice and, get the information they need to make reasonably informed decisions on their contracts. But it's tough because they're so young when they start. You have 15, 16-year-olds getting pursued, and then ultimately they're allowed to, play with the quote-unquote big boys when they turn 17.
I used to have it all the time, Sean, actually, just to interrupt. Like, I used to be a manager, and it was like, we'd be like, here's your contract. And they'd say to us, like, well, can you read and explain it to me? And I'm like, that's the most retarded thing you could do. Like, I'm not going to rip you off. Like, I'm a good guy, and I'll tell you exactly what it all means. But please, for the love of God, like, get somebody with, legal knowledge to read over this. Because you got to understand that, I'm in a position of interest about this contract. You can't trust everything I tell you. Be like you say, they're young, naive kids. And it's very easy for people to exploit them if you've got the right kind of smile, the right kind of demeanor, and it's a very dangerous industry for that. No one can really afford attorneys in esports,
Well, I think that a fair number of attorneys, especially younger attorneys, would be, pretty willing to get involved for, discounted rates or even pro bono. The problem is you just there's no way to communicate, from the professional realm down to the player realm. Like there because there's no union, because there's no overarching, because, you can't go team to team because the teams are also interested parties. So they don't, there's no incentive for the team to get individual players legal representation. The team may want legal representation, but the individual players, that's the player's own thing. That's where a players union would work and have outside counsel associated with it, and members of the union would be able to talk to them. And in that sense, it would be, beneficial to the players to get access to legal advice that they otherwise are not getting, as far as I can tell. But we'll see. The big problem is, you're talking about how you were a manager and you put a contract in front of them. They say, explain this to me. Like, well, if you give the explanation of, I'm going to pay you money for you to play video games, they are probably in the position of thinking, that sounds pretty good. I don't really like my minimum wage hourly job. I'd much rather play video games for money. And it's like, there's a big disconnect on, they don't know what they're worth because they don't know what they're going to generate for the people who are hiring them. And that's where, that information is difficult to access. And you need people to go there for you and say, we're not going to sign this till we actually see this information.
Yeah. Well, look, so just a final question, Sean. I think a lot of people, and it differs from country to country. So I guess I'll say stick to an American example. But is it not problematic that we have something that's effectively posturing as being a union, a team union, being owned by a major company that isn't necessarily, it's not a league, so it's not comparable to NFL. It's a streaming platform. It's a platform to broadcast the endeavors and antics of those teams and players that may or may not be signed to that particular agency or stroke union. I can't think of anything comparable to it in sports. A lot of people have said it's just like the NFL. Well, it fucking isn't like the NFL. Yeah. So tell me, dude. I mean, can you think of anything that's even vaguely comparable to this?
Well, it's interesting. I was watching one of the first reaction videos that I think Travis did with Slasher and someone else, and
I didn't have time to watch that actually before the show. Was it any good?
I mean, it was It was interesting. I mean, there was some more information, but not a ton more information. But people were saying their concern was, well, Twitch is like ESPN, and it would be really weird if ESPN owned an NFL team also. But Twitch really isn't like ESPN, because ESPN would be like, ESPN is like ESL, CBS is like MLG. You have all these different providers who are all using television, just like you have all these different providers who are using online streaming platforms. And yeah, none of those broadcasters own teams, and none of them do in the esports space either. But this is almost like Comcast getting involved.
Yeah.
But they do already. Like there are, at college sports level, there are exclusive deals where certain channels are only carried by, Comcast versus DirecTV or Dish Network or various things like that. Which, there are independent concerns about that in that realm. But, it's something that can happen, and it is legal, or at least it's difficult to show that it's illegal, which means it's too expensive to care a lot of the time. But it's worrisome to see Good Game posture as a union, because it's really not a union.
Yes, you're right.
It's like a consortium of teams, and they're engaging in collective action, or they're saying that they're willing to threaten engaging in collective action. But I think what it really is more is it's a collective negotiation, not necessarily with tournaments so much as with outside resources. Like it's a organically grown competitor to something like CBSI that got involved in the esports world. So it's weird to see it postured as a union, especially when you don't have actual individual players. Like you don't have Double Lift being independently marketed by Good Game. It seems like it's all teams and maybe a couple of broadcast personalities, which are sort of like their own brand. That's what I heard, but it's very unclear what the scope of Good Game is. And it would be nice to have more information, and that may well come out.
Well, I hope so. I hope so. But I think what's more likely, Sean, is it'll be a little bit more clouded, actually, with the purchase. I think that's generally how these things tend to work. We were just starting to get a handle on what the Good Game Agency was, what they were trying to achieve. I was researching, a big story about them. And that all kind of goes by the wayside now, because I'm sure it's going to change again. But at least we kind of know where they are and who owns them now. I guess that's and what their goals are likely to be. But still, I'm kind of like you. I'd like to know more. I'd like maybe a bit more transparent.
Well, the one plus side is Amazon's a publicly traded company. Amazon bought Twitch. Twitch bought Good Game. So, there could be public disclosures that will have more information about all of this. I don't know. Yeah. It's pretty nested deep at this point, but we'll see.
Well, look,
we might at least see how much money they gave.
Yeah, well, which will be, an interesting, factoid in itself. But just before you go, Sean, look, I want to say, obviously, thanks for coming on. You've got, the kind of expertise that we don't often get on this show. It's usually just, people who want to talk to me, and it's idiot to idiot. So it's nice to meet an educated man. Just on a point you made earlier, and this is just for my own curiosity, you talked about it'd be great if there was attorneys out there that would do reduced or pro bono work for esports people. Is that anything you'd ever consider doing?
Yeah, I mean, I've reached out to people. I just haven't really gotten responses, and I know a few people who've done similar things. It's just like I said, it's very difficult to open up lines of communication with people.
Well, look, dude, we need. I mean, and when I say we, I mean, I don't mean organizations. I mean players in particular. That there's a genuine requirement for people that have an understanding of the law, and in particular contract law, to help these young guys out and not get burned. I think everyone's first esports contract's a bit of a clusterfuck, frankly, and it's something that we look back on with a lot of regret. But it'd be great if there was a guy like you out there in the scene, kind of being the dark knight of esports contracts. So please, 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 if that's something you can make time for, definitely consider it. But in the meantime, Sean, it was fantastic to talk to you. Really enlightened and educated call. And I'm amazed our numbers kept going up. Usually, educated and enlightened talks the kind of thing that drives people away from this channel in particular. They just want to watch me drink. But thanks a lot, really. It means a lot. And hopefully you'll call in again next time there's something a bit juicy.
It was a pleasure. Keep doing good work.
Thanks, brother. You look after yourself. All the best. So there we go. That was our attorney, Sean, with the amazing microphone as well. I forgot to ask him what his microphone was.
I'll get it for the chat.
Yeah, you get it, because I know a few people were asking about it. What's a really good microphone, actually?
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Have you got speakers on, by the way? I'm echoing when I'm talking to you.
No, I just have a shit mic. You don't pay me enough.
I don't pay you anything.
No, exactly. It's not enough.
Look, do you know what, though? I tried to manufacture an opportunity for you. So
I did it. It's set up.
No,
I must have been too drunk.
I ain't even talking about that, you asshole. I ain't even talking about that. I'm talking about how, like, okay. So, what a lot of people don't realize is I got Sam into DreamHack.
Oh my god, this fucking story again.
There you go, right? And I got Sam a fucking VIP wristband to come to the Twitch after party to hobnob with, like, all the big streamers, all the esports peeps, you know, like where I get like 90% of my stories for the year. And I got Sam there, you know, he was up in the, we were sat up in the Twitch lounge together when I wasn't working, watching games and talking and shit. And I was like, Sam, man, why don't you come to the party? You'll meet loads of cool people, you know, I'll introduce you as being like my fucking producer. It'll be super cool. What did you do, Sam?
Fell asleep.
Where did you fall asleep?
In my hotel room. Fuck off, you slept all event. Jesus.
I didn't sleep through the party though, did I? Yeah.
Probably did eventually. Probably
No way.
Got fucked.
I was drinking with big wigs from a peripheral company who I shall not name.
I'll probably find out in the next few
at
minutes.
About 9 a.m. I won't name them.
Oh my god. I don't think you're supposed to do this, Richard. You almost leaked something already.
Why the fuck? Why didn't you just come to the party though, Sam?
I was planning on. I went back to my hotel. I was like, right, I'm fucking chat. I've been up all weekend drinking and watching CS:GO, pushing through these fucking crowds of nerds to get to the front seat in CS:GO. So right, I'm gonna go back, have a bath, and then go to sleep. So I went back. I had a nice warm bath. I was relaxed, drinking whiskey in my bath, just boiling hot water, and all my mates were out as well, so I had this big huge suite to myself. I just go collapse on the bed, and then I wake up. I actually did wake up. I woke up in time for the shuttle or whatever. I looked at my phone, it's like, nah, it's not fucking worth it, to be honest.
What's wrong with you? Free fucking bar. You would have all of the good shit. Like, it's unbelievable that you didn't come. Like, you don't understand.
We'll do it at summer.
You wouldn't be producing shows for me right now if you'd come to that party. You would have got out. You would have been emancipated from the horror. And you fucking fucked it up, dude.
Next one, that's a good thing from the Twitch chat. Next time I'll have to take a pot noodle with me.
I was going to do it. Made a fucking joke about pot noodle and a wank, and you actually chose pot noodle and a wank.
I didn't have a pot noodle. I had a lovely fucking, like, Swedish burger.
So you did have a wank though, Sam?
Well, empty room. Somehow we'll have a good story and it won't be a wank, and it'll be, I don't know, fighting nerds at Twitch. How Richard got banned from Twitch forever.
I accuse you of having a pot noodle and a wank, and your response is, I didn't have a pot noodle.
It was a warm bath. It was very sensual.
Oh, Rainox kid. Right, so let's get another caller on. And,
oh fuck, we're still going. I thought it was over. Right, Cameron Nelson. He's been trying to get on for a few weeks. He wants to talk about how the CS:GO controversy affects people's view of the game from outsiders and people who aren't involved in the esport.
Which controversy?
Boostgate and, you know, just all these hacking accusations.
Oh, that one. All right, okay. So I can get him on. Sorry, the beer's kicked in and talking to you. I've got a Welsh there. Like, I need to fix it before the caller gets on. Hello there.
Hey, Richard. Good to hear from you again.
Yeah, yes, I recognise the voice. How are you doing?
Yeah, I recognize the voice. Your chat says I sound like Zuna, and I'm highly offended. I
Wow.
don't feed nearly as hard as he does.
Dude, I gotta say, man, I can only apologize for them. You don't sound like Zuna.
Yeah,
Uh
no, actually, you'll watch a lot of Hearthstone. I sound like Strife Crow.
that's I think I might have met Strife Crow by accident, I think,
Yeah, probably.
at DreamHack. But anyway,
Yeah, it
look,
scared the crap out of me first time I heard him speak.
the main thing is you've got a great voice and you want to talk about CS:GO, which is a subject very close to my heart. So let's do it, man. There's been a lot of controversy in CS:GO. I presume you're talking about was it in particular the hacking accusation, or was it Boostgate?
I guess a little bit of both. In general, I just kind of want to talk about. I literally knew nothing about Counter Strike 2 weeks ago, so I kind of found it funny. A few minutes ago, you said the show is idiot to idiot because I don't know anything about Counter Strike for the past couple.
You're in the
weeks.
right place. You're in the right
But
place.
yeah, I gotta tell you, I picked a hell of a time to get into Counter Strike, didn't I?
Yeah, man. But it's the thing though, right? So I'm guessing the argument that you're gonna probably make is something along the lines of that it's almost like detrimental. But you know what? The one thing I will say about the cheating accusations, about Boostgate, about all of this drama is to people just getting into the game, it's something juicy and tangible to fucking hook yourself onto. And very quickly, you can find yourself picking a side, attaching yourself to somebody. Like, for example, if you're one of the people who thinks Fnatic are having like a terrible time and are being victimized, you probably identify with Fnatic real fucking strong right now, like in a time of massive criticism. If you're somebody that I know has been reared on mainstream sports, and I used in my recent article the example of Barry Bonds, the fucking, steroid using lying piece of shit. Like you might think, well, fuck Fnatic, and align yourself with any team that they play, or LDLC in particular. So I think actually there are some good elements to this, which is just my feeling. Drama's not always a bad thing. But anyway, sorry. What are
And
your...
it's fine. I'm kind of split about Fnatic, to be honest. I feel for some of the players, and I think some of them are getting what's coming to them. Like Flusha, for example, dude. Holy hell! I don't think I've seen a bigger asshole in esports in a long time. He is writing a book on how to handle a controversy wrong in every way possible, and I feel sorry for Fnatic that the dude's on the roster right now.
Yeah, so tell me why he's handling it wrong. Give me your opinion.
Have you read his Twitter feed? For fuck's sake, the dude's trashing the entire community, and it's just like at this point, it's like. I was raised in when I was going back to college. I was raised in business management. If I was on a PR team, I'd be telling management to fire this guy right now. I don't care how good he is.
Yeah. Well, I look, I gotta say, dude, it's super fucking weird. It is super weird because first of all, they withdrew from the tournament, and as I said on previous shows, LDLC were gonna withdraw. They woke up that day like, we're gonna withdraw. Fuck this. This is bullshit. We're gonna withdraw. And then Fnatic had beaten them to it somehow, and they decided they were gonna withdraw. So LDLC, they withdraw from withdrawing. Fnatic rock up to the event, withdraw from the event, and release a statement saying, we respect the community, we respect our competitors, and because of that, we withdraw. Right?
And then the manager and one of their star players immediately pisses on the entire statement.
Yeah. But in particular, like you say, I've got to say, the Flusha Facebook post that he made, where he said, this community is a fucking joke. I'll never understand that because, like, speaking as somebody that got driven out of the Counter-Strike community once already and had genuine death threats, not I'll kill you, nerd, genuine death threats, like a plan, how it's going to happen, what will happen to my body, like genuine, shocking death threats. Yeah, serious. Like I know how vicious the Counter-Strike community can be. The one thing I would never call it, though, is a joke per se. Certainly not if I was going to a community-funded event, like an event that's only possible because the community have got behind the game, got behind the funding of the game, and have basically given you a revenue stream to make a living from.
Right, and and that's kind of a shame that he's doing that because you got guys on the other hand like I think Olaf and JW were smart and they haven't said a damn thing about it, And I feel really bad for Forrest because he seems to actually be the only one who realizes just exactly how many people they pissed off.
Well, I mean, so let's just talk a little bit more about the Flusher thing, because you said you consider him the biggest asshole in esports for a long while, and it's really
Certainly
weird.
has the most spectacular assholery in a while.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a bit weird that. Okay, so I'm sympathetic because let's not forget there is a chance he's completely innocent of any cheating. I'll
Right,
say
like,
I'll.
Yeah,
Go
I
on,
took a
well,
look at that video evidence, and honestly, to me, it looks a little shaky. I don't know anything about Counter-Strike, but it didn't look anything too out of the ordinary. Like, it looks like it
Yeah.
could be legit shots he was taking.
I mean, so for me, okay, right. I played the game a long time. I know that you can get these strange anomalies occur, and I never thought this would happen actually. But I am kind of in agreement with Lurpis. I cannot explain within the context of the game those movements. I can't explain a crosshair moving, for example, at a fucking certain angle in a normally as you would, and then just suddenly in an unnatural way going off on another angle in a perfectly smooth line, snapping straight towards where the player just so happens to be through a wall, and then doesn't even consistently move in that angle afterwards. It moves off in another angle after you've done it, or sometimes in the complete opposite direction. I can't explain that. I can't. I've watched all of the videos, all of the GIFs. Fnatic fans say, "Oh, it's 16 tick demos. You can't trust them." Other people have said, "Well, actually, it's worse. We've done this to show that it looks worse if you run it through this, a non-16 tick demo. If you do this, if you look at where it actually is, it's worse for him." I think that there is a very big question mark over things that have happened in past tournaments in regards to Flusher. Now,
Yeah, which is kind of bad because they just won ESEA, didn't they?
yeah, but so here's the thing. Now, there's no way any cheating was going on at ESEA. I can't believe anyone would be so stupid to do it. DreamHack, you know what? Like I said, I don't think anyone would be stupid enough to do it because DreamHack were gonna really crack down on everything. But actually, in reality, no disrespect to DreamHack, who everybody knows I've got a lot of love for, but the security checks weren't all they were cracked up to be, frankly. They brought it in line with what you would expect from a normal esports event, a League of Legends tournament, a StarCraft tournament. But it wasn't really. Nobody checked peripherals. Nobody checked keyboards. Nobody was filming, hands. Nobody was measuring keystrokes. So there was still serious question marks about the legitimacy of that tournament, actually. Because what we need to assume at this point is that previous tournaments have had people cheating them using specially made, custom-made private hacks that people are paying top dollar for. And we know that that's happened because ESEA discovered a couple of them. Now, these cheats can potentially be in a peripheral. There's no reason to suggest they couldn't be. And if that was the case, the precautions that DreamHack put in place wouldn't necessarily have discovered those. Now, maybe we're getting into some mad paranoia, but I know cheats like that can exist because I wrote about them in 2009.
Yeah, and it's kind of sad, especially as a new player, you could see like a big team pull off, some good plays. Like, that boost aside, I thought Olaf was actually taking pretty good shots when he was up there. Like stuff I couldn't make in a million years.
Oh,
and
yeah,
you got to wonder if, he was
he's a good
aimbotting those or
player.
something.
He's a good player, but this is the thing. So I guess this is the fundamental problem with the Fnatic issue, right? Flusher is the guy that we've managed to procure the most video footage for. Flusher seems to be the guy that's right. If there were a cheat, Flusher's the guy that's relying on it the most. But Olaf's been accused. Olaf Meister's been accused. Even Pronax, which is insane to me. Yeah. So now, and also there was an interview with a cheat coder in 99 Damage, and he said managers and coaches were buying the software en masse for their teams and had made inquiries about doing so. So this is the fundamental problem. If Flusher is guilty of cheating, which I'm not saying one way or another he is, I'm just saying I can't explain the footage in my mind. And he's tried to explain by saying he picks up his mouse. And that explanation doesn't satisfy me. I need a better explanation. I need a better alibi. And trust me, I want to believe, right? But if it's video footage alone and the only excuse is I pick up my mouse in between movements, sorry, dude, not buying that. Sorry, right? But the fundamental problem we've got is if Flusher is guilty, then we need to look at the Olaf stuff. Probably going to say he's guilty too. And then we start talking about, is Fnatic involved in a group fucking conspiracy? Are they all at it? Do they all know? And it's insane to believe that. It's insane to believe a good guy like Khan, who has been a fucking, standout member of the Counter-Strike community, would be the manager of the team that would engage in that. But does he know? Do they know what's going on? And this is what I mean. This is why in the first instance of all of that footage coming out, something had to happen from Fnatic. They either had to explain it, and they could have just made the explanation up. They could have just made it up. It wouldn't matter. But if it sounded plausible, it goes away. But they said nothing. They said nothing, and they went to tournaments, and it was still happening. And then maybe the organization should have said at that point, fuck, do you know what? Flusher might be innocent here, but with everything else that's going on, maybe we should remove him from the team, like just to distance ourselves. We publicly say we don't think he's guilty, but because of the scrutiny and the pressure it's putting under our team, we need to make a roster change right now. I don't think it sucks for Flusher, again, if he's innocent. But the point is, if you're innocent of something and you've got all this footage that suggests you ain't, then there has to be an explanation. So I'm really sympathetic with Fnatic, but again, I think they've handled it incredibly poorly.
Yeah, and that's the whole scary thing about going forward into me personally want to invest in a Counter-Strike more, because I want to point out, I'm a huge fan of baseball. You brought up Barry Bonds, and they found out Barry Bonds was cheating. They traced back where the drugs came from. And then, eventually they found the Balco lab, and, then we got, 84 some odd players in the report, and, just...
Didn't end
it took baseball. It took baseball like good 5-10 years to get their image back after that.
Yeah, but Barry Bonds still wasn't necessarily found guilty. His lawyers admitted he'd used steroids unknowingly, which is it's ridiculous.
Oh, it's complete bullshit. Yeah, but that's just what happened to the guys at the top. You got guys at the bottom. Some of the lower level guys. Who couldn't get signed and. Everything just looked bad, and I'm scared of that happening to Counter-Strike because those were some exciting games I watched at DreamHack, and I want to see more of this. And I'm scared that a lot of this stuff could get a negative light on the sport that I'm quickly becoming a huge fan of.
Okay, so let's tie that into what you were talking about with baseball then. I agree. I think the baseball scandal, even though a lot of people knew. Look, anyone who remembers 1986 Barry Bonds. Live, athletic, running around compared to 94, 95 Barry Bonds, where he'd gained about 60 pounds of pure fucking muscle. I think anybody who remembers...
Your time's a little off, because I think his rookie season was about 91. He didn't start really blowing up until the late 90s, early 2000s.
Let me Google this. I'm sure Barry Bonds was out there in 86.
He signed with... Remember, he won MVPs with Pittsburgh in the early 90s. He really started blowing up his size and numbers around 98 in San Francisco.
Yeah, but wasn't he with the Pirates in 86?
No, he signed with San Francisco in 1994, I believe. Don't have the numbers off the top of my head, sadly.
Time Magazine's disagreeing with you.
All right.
I'll send it. I'll send it to you in Skype. Not that I want to have an argument about the timeline of Barry Bonds.
No, it's fine. It's I could easily.
I'd be massively upset if I got it wrong, because I hate baseball. But the Barry Bonds
British,
story.
You're supposed to.
Yeah, well, obviously, right? But it's
okay.
still
No, rookie season was 86. You're right.
Yes. fucking rule.
And I was a year off. He came to San Francisco in '93. Close enough.
Hey, so no, we're both winners. We're both big winners.
Yeah.
But anyway, I mean, the Barry Bonds thing for me is a fascinating sporting story, even though I detest baseball, because it's like you say, everybody knew something wasn't right. Everybody. But it managed to just kind of keep going and going and going until he was the fucking Hall of Famer. The record number of home runs of any player. And there isn't one player below him who isn't looking at that record thinking bullshit. Absolute bullshit. Fuck this guy. So,
it's sad you think that it could get to players like that. Like my favorite player getting to Counter-Strike is Get Right. It'd kill me if Get Right was cheating.
Oh yeah, but I mean, here's the thing. Okay, so there isn't even any footage. There's no argument. There's no argument, right? That no question about those guys. There's no question.
Yeah,
but
there's a difference in a 16 pixel movement on a mouse and someone gaining 50 pounds of muscle.
But
it's really hard to
You're
tell.
right, yeah, right. Sorry, Barry Bonds isn't a Hall of Famer. He's the record holder. He's been denied entrance into the Hall of Fame. You're absolutely right. Sorry, the beers.
He's up for ballot on the Hall of Fame, but his numbers look like crap. He might get in about 10 years with the numbers softened, but who knows? Yeah.
So, and it seems to me like what you're talking about with Counter-Strike, though, it's just, I don't want to have a situation where, say, 2 years from now, it all comes tumbling out the woodwork after this Fnatic team have won tournament after tournament after tournament, that even if Flusha was clean now, he wasn't clean back then. Imagine it.
Yeah.
Because Fnatic should be one of the world's greatest teams. We should all be able to buy into the Fnatic myth. We should all be able to buy into the Fnatic, all thoughts about them being this incredible team, being the number one in the world, being a group of guys who made it work, underdogs. I mean, fuck. I feel weird when they won Fragbite and I was there hosting it. I had Flusha on a fucking sofa with me. And I interviewed him and I said, guys, how did you do this? How did you turn it round? And Flusha
that must have been an awkward interview.
But it was the thing. At this point, none of these accusations had come out. People were just starting to amass the video footage, and I paid it no mind. And I'm an idiot for doing that, actually, because pros have been cheating for as long as there's been an incentive to win in any sport, But I had him on the couch, and I asked him. I said, "How did you guys do it?" And he was like, "Oh, I don't know." He was real shy, real humble. And I asked him, "Do you guys think you're the best team in the world?" And he was like, "Yeah, we're the best team in the world." And it's like, I want to believe that a bunch of guys worked hard, came together, were galvanized, and became the best team in the world. Became the Fnatic. I love Fnatic. I love the Fnatic brand. I grew up with them in Counter-Strike.
I want to believe that too, because watching them play, they're an exciting team to watch. I can pick out some good things. Like during the whole Boostgate thing, it's like, Olaf was taking some cheap shots because he had advantage the map. But you watch the plays break down, and you watch guys like JW, managed to get the firefight, under control when their boost point got spotted. They're still a good team, even if they're cheating. Makes you wonder how much the cheats really help, and kind of sad if they're that good if they even have to cheat.
Yeah, but imagine now, okay, again, this is all imaginary because I don't think we'll ever get to the bottom of it, man. I don't think we'll ever really know one way or the other. But let's just imagine, okay, that all of that footage from past tournaments was Flusha cheating, and that was, and some of them are from tournaments that Fnatic didn't even win. But then let's say they went to ESEA and they played clean and they beat everyone. Let's even say, all the performances they put on at DreamHack were clean. Right? This is an amazing team. But we've got to know if all of the players have been clean throughout their entire history to really get on board with Fnatic. And unfortunately, the Fnatic have let the question marks linger too long. I don't think they'll ever be respected in the way they should be. I think if they win another 10 tournaments in a row, there'll still be question marks. And those question marks all emanate from the Flusha, footage. And until they can explain that, until that can legitimately be explained, I think people have a right to be dubious about Fnatic's pedigree right now.
Yeah, and it's a bit scary. Like I said, they tracked down, where Flusha got his cheats from. Who's to say, guys on like, Navi or LDLC hadn't been using those cheats as well, and then this thing completely blows out of control.
Well, when
That's the huge thing I'm scared of. Just how deep does this go?
When SMN, the German player that was kind of the first domino to fall in all of this, he named his list, and on that list were, Flusha and Olaf, and also as well, he said there was someone in VP using them, Virtus Pro. I mean, and I don't believe it. I don't believe it. And then somebody brought up a video of, I think it was Bialy, at the last ESEA event. I think it might have been. And they were saying, look, it looks a bit like Flusha. It's like, fuck, I mean, what if there was just a cheat that we couldn't really get our head around? We couldn't really understand. And it's like I say, I've been in the scene a long time. I've known when pros have used smoke hacks that, couldn't necessarily be detected. Back in 2005, pink walls. You could make textures transparent by using a video shader glitch in your settings and fucking with your DX levels. Pros showed me how to do that. Yeah, that's how I learned about cheats when I first started covering Counter-Strike, 2004, 2005. So I'm like, wait a minute. The pros always know what the cheats are. Always. They always do. So if there was some super amazing cheats out there that, we're never going to know. And this is what I mean. It's like, do we need to go back to an era where we look at footage and we say, if it looks like bullshit, fuck it? We've got to say it is bullshit and act appropriately? Or do we allow a Barry Bonds type fucking scandal where you've got some absolute muscle-bound oaf, knocking out the fucking home run record, which no one wants to recognize, not even baseball's Hall of fucking Fame, before we start saying, actually, perhaps the methods of detection aren't proper.
Yeah, and I don't think that's going to stop me from getting into Counter-Strike because it's a completely different animal, from everything. Yep. It's way more fast-paced than anything, even StarCraft. I mean, it's got a pace and an intensity that I don't think any esport does match the time. That's what makes it a lot of fun, but it's probably also got the biggest risk of wanting to get into, at least right now, just because of all this crap going on. And I hope that doesn't scare off too many people, because I mean it's incredibly fun and the community is growing faster than ever, and I want to be a part of it. But it does concern me, what this is going to look like, to people coming in. It may scare a lot of potential viewers off, which is sad, because it could really hurt the scene.
It could. I think the one thing we've got going for us is that we're just a fucking, we're an amazing game. And the reality is that, look, even if it was as high as what SMN said, that 30% of the pro scene was cheating, that 70% that don't, they do some amazing things. And it just makes the game look great. The majors are great. Valve have created a brilliant platform. I think the esport will continue to grow. I agree we need to get a fucking handle on this problem. We need to know what we're dealing with. We need all of the people to come together. The DreamHacks, the ESEAs, the ESLs, Valve, everybody. We need to come together. We need to get a set rule set that we use for every tournament.
Exactly, yeah, and that's one of the huge things that scares me is Valve's complete lack of involvement with the scene. It seems like they don't want to touch this.
They're getting better. They're definitely getting better than what they used to be. You have to understand, like, what Valve will never admit, but what I know, and like I say, it's appropriate I chose to wear the T-shirt Valve gave me tonight, which was, this is the ESL Cologne. This is what I got for doing a major, as well as some money, obviously. But what Valve would never admit, and what I'll say for them, and they'll probably tell me not to say things for them, but I'll fucking say it anyway, is that every time they try to get involved with the community, they got fucking driven out of it. Because every time they try to make a positive change or change the game in any way in 1.6 They got told, get fucked. I mean, not even 1.6 in the original Counter-Strike, you know? There's people out there that still swear 1.3 was better, 1.5 was better. Then you had the whole 1.6 versus Source argument. Then there was people in Source who were like, every time Valve updates the game in a way, it's never what we want. They always fuck it up. And Valve were just like, you know what, man? Every time we try and do something for this community, they shit all over us. So let's focus on other projects. And they went out and made amazing games. They went out and made amazing games, and then they brought in outside party to do the global offensive. The beta was terrible. I was part of that, and then eventually Valve took control of it again and built it into what it is today. They're just getting their head around being able to interact with the Counter-Strike community in a way where they don't just get fucking abused for it, and and actually. I think they're ready. They're ready for my suggestion, which is they need a commissioner. They need a game commissioner, somebody from Valve that literally goes out to every tournament organizer, make sure everything's done. Don't just send your team guys along or watch it and, talk about it and take information. Like, that's great. It's great they're there. I'm talking about a commissioner. I'm talking about every time there's a VAC ban, for a pro player, they come out and they go, it was legit. Fuck their bullshit. It wasn't their brother. Right, it was legit. They even used it at this tournament. We've got the date. That's all we're going to tell you. And just imagine that. Imagine if you were a player now and you couldn't hide behind the, oh, someone hacked my account excuse. Because, the commissioner from Valve was going to rat you the fuck out in public. How much better would that make the game?
Yeah, like, it is kind of bad they don't have that central figure, like... Wasn't in that interview released with Big Bad Wolf today that said, Valve could use someone like, say what you want about Nick Allen, but like you said, Nick Allen says something, shit's legit.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, look, Nick Allen is crazy, like, in my opinion. I ain't got no time for that guy at all. He's out of his mind. I had dealings with that guy. The only reason I ever talked to that guy was because... he's the representative of League of Legends Esports. I want statements to write reports, to be a journalist. Every time I reached out to him for a statement, tight-lipped. Every time I called someone a prick on Twitter, I'd get a sermon from him on Skype about how I'm not making any friends and I should behave myself. And I was just like, look, motherfucker, like, there's the only reason we're talking is because you can give me statements that I need to do my job. I don't want life lessons from fucking Nick Allen.
Yeah, you want good leaks from Nick. Don't go to Nick. Go to the asshole that's get paid a tenth of what he does to handle his paperwork.
So, it's just like, but ultimately, here's what I will say. The fact that he exists as a presence and he's the fall guy for Riot Games, and he absolutely is, because these decisions are made by a group of people. And he comes out and goes, right, we're finding CLG, we're doing this, we're doing that.
Yeah, and what I found funny about that CLG thing was they only mentioned Skara. Anyone think they could get fined again for Zion? Because no one's saying shit about Skara.
Yeah, I know. I was going to say, like, the thing is, probably what happens is the Skara thing's the only thing they can prove. I'll tap Odie up, I'll buy him a beer and give him a tickle. But look, so just to kind of bring the points all together, brother, I think Valve definitely need to get a bit more hands-on with this. I think they need to have somebody like a Nick Allen. I never thought I would ever use the phrase. I think what Valve should do is clone Nick Allen. But you know what?
God, no. You need someone who can actually make a consistent set of decisions.
Yeah, well... No, but here's the thing. The consistency isn't even important. It's legitimacy. It's the fact that because it's coming from this voice, like, guys like me can say this is inconsistent, but you know what? It's not going to change because a guy like me says it's inconsistent. That's the official ruling. Deal with it. Valve needs a guy like that. Valve needs a guy that comes out.
They absolutely do. And I hope they do get at least someone in control of this stuff, because it's... Get into a point, where, you have entire third-party rule organizations. You could get into the stuff that happened with DreamHack. Like, the reason, at least what I saw, the interview with the DreamHack head was the reason they didn't release something about Boostgate was, weren't they bug testing in-game for, 5 or 6 hours because of that Fnatic counterclaim?
Yeah, I mean, they were, and that was, look, the Fnatic counterclaim was nonsense. It was nonsense. I mean, right, so... the Fnatic version is the players got really upset after the game and they decided to withdraw because they were crying their eyes out. But like,
it's like I cheated because they cheated.
yeah, but like, you know, they should have just fucking said, look, we used the boost. We knew it was a gamble. We thought it was going to be something cool and innovative, which is what they said. It's what JW said on Reddit.
That's what the initial what it sounded like was it was the initial reaction from the casters at the time because they didn't realize that it was a pixel walk.
For the first round.
Yeah, they didn't realize it was pixel walking, so it looked cool.
By round 7 of just,
by round 7, it got sad. I saw that video. It got sad after a while.
But
LDLC didn't want to leave the tunnel.
The commentators were just like, well, I guess this is what the game's going to look like. So, nobody enjoyed it, and it was like Fnatic all high-fiving and whooping and cheering afterwards. It made for like a super awkward interview at the end. James Duffield, the guy who's doing the interviews, was like, in his head, like, I don't even know what to say about what the shit I've just seen. When it got flagged as being unfair, what Fnatic should have said, literally what makes all of this go away, what puts Fnatic back out there as a popular team we can all love again, would have just been if the Fnatic players and managers had agreed, let's play the half from 12-3. Let's just play from 12-3. Let's do it. Fuck it. Like, we've got, everybody wins in that instance. What you
everyone would have loved that because, the community would have tuned in mass to see LDLC whoop their ass.
Yeah, but not even that, though. Not even that. Like, just imagine if Fnatic do win legitimately from 12-3 down after saying, you know what, we used the boost. We thought it was going to be innovative, but you know what? We believe in fair play. If it's deemed illegal, fuck it. We'll play from 12-3 down.
And on a good day, who knows? They might have won. Fnatic's a good team. Unfortunately, LDLC was on fire during DreamHack, and I don't think anyone could have beaten them.
But what they did was they fucking filed a bogus complaint about a boost that was used in 2 rounds, which had minimal impact on the game, nowhere near like their game-breaking boost. And because in principle it was kind of the same, they forced a whole replay.
That's the bad thing. At what point can you call bullshit? Because even though they are cheating, it's just like it's not the same degree.
Not at all. So I'm with you, man. Like, look, and here's what I will say: I'm a Fnatic fan. Well, no one believes that. Everyone thinks I'm a Fnatic hater. I am a Fnatic fan. I grew up with fucking Fnatic. I've got loads of friends in that organization, like friends in across all of the games. I hated the fact that the community did that bullshit letter, like writing to all of their sponsors.
And same here. Even with all said, I do like Fnatic. They're good. No, they're a good team to watch. Olaf is a very smart player. JW has some really good reactions, and Force Pronax, very good guys. And then that other asshole on there.
Yeah, but I mean, look, it's like I say, I think if we find one player guilty, we probably's got to assume that it was a conspiracy. I just want a plausible explanation about the cheating. But, I don't want to believe the worst of Fnatic. They're a great organization with great managers, great owners. They've always been there for as long as I've cared about esports. And I want them to still be there. But this situation they had with the cheating accusations, then Boostgate, then coming out and shitting all over the community, it's like you let it build up to the point where the community could take no more. Then you pulled out that bullshit boost in a tournament, which you'd hidden purposefully just to use in that particular scenario. Then you turn around and call the same community that you just said you respected a fucking joke. Please, guys, get a grip of yourselves, because the Reddit circle jerk might be coming back around to fucking be like, oh, let's give Fnatic a break. Great. But everybody with a brain, everybody who's credible, everybody who's like an industry person, they ain't thinking, wow, the Fnatic brand's so hot right now. Like, they ain't, Yeah,
so, between this and their league team, I feel sorry for the Fnatic directors.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the fucking league team, the CSGO team, everything right now. Like, if it wasn't for my brother Harstem in StarCraft, shit. Like, what would we
if it wasn't for Harstem and them thinking, thank God we still have Yellowstar, I don't know what they do.
Indeed. Well, look, it was great to talk to you, man. Thanks a lot for tuning in. I'm glad you're getting into Counter-Strike. Don't let it put you...
you mind if I give a last statement about this, though?
Absolutely. You pitch in, brother.
Yeah, I just want to say that, this cheating aside, if you are on the fence about watching CSGO, pretty much my only esports experience now has been MOBAs. I got into League about 2 years ago, got into Dota, and, Counter-Strike is a completely different beast. It is really a great spectator esport. It's growing. Hopefully, this cheating stuff's going to get better. Tournaments are getting better than ever. And, it's got great moments. Like watching the semis between was it VP and NIP, just watching Freiburg light bitches up for that first half. You really can't get better than that in esports. And, please do support the community. And hopefully, if we get enough good guys in it, we can eventually just have this be a nice little footnote and forget about it.
Yeah, and not just enough good guys, but also a clone of Nick Allen. Clone of the worst guys.
Let's screw up the sample a little. Maybe we'll be good.
Well, look, thanks a lot for calling in, man, and hopefully you'll call in again sometime. You have a great evening.
No problem. And if Sam is listening, you've been booting me off the show for 3 weeks now. I had to blackmail you to get on here. Next time, make me easier to get on.
It's Richard's fault, all right? Fucking blame the producer. It's always Richard.
It's always Richard.
It's easier to yell at the producer than the host.
This guy knows. Anyway, have a good night, brother.
Yeah, good night, Richards. Glad talking to you again.
Peace out. So there we go. So Sam, you're a bit of a cunt to the callers as well, by
I'm a cunt to everyone. Fucking living the dream.
Living the dream. So it's 12:20. I'm thinking we should wrap up. What do you think?
All right, okay. I don't think we have.
I don't know. Did you promise someone else?
That's what I was thinking, but no, not really. We have a mod in the chat, but you can just fucking suck it up for a week.
Yeah, he's a mod. I've given him enough powers. And this awesome BrewDog beer.
Oh my god.
Really has taken its toll on my faculties. I gotta say, I'm quite surprised because it goes down so easy, Sam.
I drink that at my local. Where the fuck's my hookup? I drink BrewDog Punk IPA.
No, well, this is the Libertine Black Ale.
Yeah, but before that, you were drinking the IPA.
Well, it's incredible, really. It's so easy to drink, and yet incredibly strong. It definitely packs a punch. It's got a sharp, bitter finish, and it's
reading
just
from the
divine.
bottle, boys.
It's just divine. And you can buy these at www.brewdog.com, Sam. So if you want your hookups,
all right. For an extra £100 a show, I'll put their logo on the overlay for you.
Hey, shit, man. Do you know what? This googly arter in the chat just said, Richard Lewis, your mother told me to tell you, all she wants for Christmas is you to get a real job, not to complain as much. Do you know what's fucked up? That's what my mother actually says. Every year, I gotta meet this bitch. Like, when is it now? We see each other once a year. No, this is true, Sam. I'm not even joking, right? I see this bitch once a year. And I'm gonna see her in the 23rd? Yeah, the 23rd. I get back from doing Take TV's CS:GO tournament, and I have a meeting with my mother, and I know she's gonna say the exact
meeting. Fucking hell,
yeah,
that's grim.
Yeah, no, but that's how it has to be now, and we're gonna have a meeting, and she's gonna do it. She'll drop the line. So what are you doing these days? Like, I'm going to have changed. Like, what are you doing these days? And I'll be like, same as always. And she'll be, you would have made a great plumber, though.
You should just show her the daily dot checks. Like, I'm fucking real job now, Mum.
Yeah,
what's it to be fucked with anymore?
The trouble with that is, though, if I show her I'm actually making bank, she might ask for some of the money I loaned back when I was a bum back. And that cannot happen.
You just go there covered in like gravy stains and shit, just grunt, and then she'll never know.
Fuck it, dude. Fuck this bitch. So FDB, fuck that bitch. So anyway, look, man. Let's just end this call, because this awesome Libertine Black Ale is definitely kicking in. I want to say thanks to all the people who tuned in. I wasn't necessarily planning on doing a show tonight. We got told Prolly for First Blood was feeling ill, so we cancelled. But I knew I should have done a trash talk this week, and there was lots to talk about. So thanks to everybody for tuning in to watch it. Thanks for Sam, who at short notice switched overlays.
Oh.
So such a tough job. Thanks to actually special thanks to Sean though.
Yeah.
Because not often we get like he's an attorney, man. He could be out like doing coke and
living the dream.
Like really living the dream
Yeah.
with this Californian attorney.
Most attorneys in esports are dicks, to be honest. So to have someone offer you pro bono advice, that's a pretty fucking big deal when it comes to lawyers.
I'll let you make some jokes about pro bono.
I'm too old for this.
Yeah, what did you say that? Yeah, I didn't have a pot noodle. So yeah, like to the guys who missed most of the show, Sam's gonna stay up all night and make sure the VOD gets put up super quick. So thanks to all of the callers, thanks to all of the viewers, thanks to all of the people out there in esports that make crazy shit happen. And just did Craig David there, just to say, I know we recently talked about Counter-Strike and like how Fnatic may or may not be cheaters, and then I said, oh, like, you know, people were implying Bialy might be a cheater. I don't believe any of these things, and I don't want you to necessarily go out and victimize these people. But for the interests of a free discussion, I think we need to name names, suspected names, and be quite open about it. So don't make Reddit threads saying that I called these people cheaters, because I don't believe it in my heart. I just want explanations for things that are dubious.
Yeah, don't make threads. Just email them straight to the daily.editor. Make sure to say that Richard called you a cunt as well.
They'll do that. No, they'll definitely do that. Like, fuck them. Anyway, it's been a blast. Thanks to Odie for abusing people in the chat. And tune in tomorrow for First Blood. You gonna do that, Sam?
Yeah, I guess. Thanks for the fucking notice. Shows how professional this shit is.
Dude, you fucking slept through a Twitch fight. Like, what are you gonna be doing?
Sleeping!
On a
Fucking bedtime.
Just fucking rubbing your fucking burger nip. Just living the dream.
That's fucking grotesque.
I am a grotesque man. Oh, and season finale of Sons of Anarchy, absolute dog shit, by the way. So let's just kill the show. Jax dies. Let's just kill the show.
Oh, what a cunt.
That's the worst thing I've ever done. Let's just get off air. It's been great. Thanks a lot, guys. Thanks for tuning in to Trash Talk. We'll see you tomorrow for First Blood. Until then, peace out, ladies.